everybody. Welcome to episode 6 of the Curt Schilling Baseball Show. I'm Curt Schilling, and he's Bill Graff. What's up, Bill?
How are you, Curt? Doing well?
I'm good. I'm not Corbin Carroll good, but I'm good.
Well, not many of us are.
No, and that's actually where we're going to start the show today. Arizona gives Corbin Carroll, 22-year-old Corbin Carroll, he of all 115 Major League plate appearances, a 8-year, $111 million deal. All guaranteed. Club has, I think, a 9th-year option for $23 million or something like that. But and Bill, we were talking earlier. This is the fusion, or this is where old school baseball and sabermetrics meet, and I think they butt heads. Because in my mind, this is sabermetrician saying, okay, all of his other numbers, all of his underlying numbers from college and the minor leagues tell us that he's going to be this $100 million player. So we're going to save some money and sign him. Whereas the old school guys would be like, hey, you know what? Give me a year or two of production, and then we'll take care of you. I just think that there's obviously as a player, who wouldn't love it? But as a team, no chance. No chance, given the physical nature of the game, given the challenge of the schedule, and the human factor. I mean, how is he going to handle a slump in the big leagues? How's he going to handle the 14-day East Coast road trips? I mean, there's just so many things. I believe this is one of those guys that almost, I feel like Chipper Jones or Alex Rodriguez, when you see him, you know, he's a can't miss. And I believe he is, but I don't believe to the tune of $111 million. So, I mean, I'm curious, as a fan of a team, is this something that excites you or something that worries you?
It worries me a great deal because, as you're saying, and it doesn't matter to me what the GM was thinking, but basically he's saying, I know this kid's going to be great.
Right.
And if all of a sudden he levels off and is a 240 hitter who's stealing a couple bases and doesn't have major league power, you're stuck with $111 million over the next 8 years.
Yeah. I mean, this is a very, I don't want to say very common, but you're seeing this over the last 5 years more than you've ever seen it in the history of the game combined. It just never happened. I mean, you know, guys like Soto and Machado and all these young guys who got good deals young or bigger deals young. I don't know. I mean, listen, it's not my money. So as a fan, you shouldn't care. Although, is this a guy? I think the answer is yes. This is a centerpiece, right? This is a guy that you plan to have in the middle of your lineup, in the middle of your defense. Obviously, I'm assuming he's going to bring some stuff in the clubhouse as well. But this is a sign of modern baseball, for all it's worth, for whatever you want to take that for. It's a different game.
The other thing, Curt, that you said, and you've said this in earlier podcasts, but this is the first time these kids are on fields where they're not the best player on the field.
Right.
Everybody else is as good as you.
Right. This is a contract where the Diamondbacks are saying this kid will continue to be the best player on the field. Right. And I guess if you're looking for the 5-tool guy, this is it, right? I mean, you're talking about a 25 homer, 300 hitting, 400 on base percentage, 50 steal, Gold Glove caliber, you know. And if that's the player, which, you know, God bless him if he is, if that's the player, then it turns out to be a great deal. Because you've bought out arbitration, you've bought out a couple years of free agency. And who knows where free agency is going to be at that point? I mean, we're talking 6 years from now. If you just look at natural payroll progression, everyday players are going to be $30-40 million guys in 5 or 6 years. So interesting. And I'm happy for him. He seems like a great kid. It's a great story, by the way. And this kid is got the tool set in the toolbox to be that guy, but there's so many unknowns that you got to wonder. So speaking of young kids, by the way, let's talk about the Yanks, because in addition to filling up their injured list, which is unfortunate with pitchers, Rodon, we talked about on the last show, Rodon being shut down. He's going to start the season on the injured list. And I'm not so sure. And there's questions around how this entire thing was handled, not necessarily by Aaron Boone, but by the organization, because apparently Rodon was feeling the pain that he felt before the start, which begs for me a ton of questions. But that's not the topic. Anthony Volpe, I would 21-year-old prospect. So the Yankees are looking for a shortstop to open the season, and you've got I think it's Peraza and Kiner Falefa. How do you say that? Falefa. Kiner Falefa. Isaiah Kiner Falefa. I love that name, by the way. Who it'll be IKF in the clubhouse, or KF.
Exactly. And he played a bunch last year for him.
Him and Peraza are both ahead of Volpe on the depth chart, so to speak. But Volpe's tearing it up. As of this podcast time, he's hitting 320, 2 homers, 3 stolen bases. He's and they're messing around with. You saw this. He played second base a little bit with Peraza at short, so they're going to mess around. Here's the problem. I can tell you, and I can go back 50 years to every spring training with almost every team. Some young kid comes up and has a phenomenal spring. This is a guy, I felt like he struggled with advanced pitching last year in the minor leagues. He wasn't, well, he certainly wasn't this guy. And you're seeing the problem with spring training for position players is that generally you're getting pitchers with no scouting reports, trying to make clubs, trying to do their thing and pitch. And that's very different than an in-season game plan versus a hitter, because very quickly you'll see exploitation of any weaknesses, which those will become more and more apparent. I think it's great when a young guy has a spring like this, because I think when he goes back to AA or AAA, he goes back with a ton of confidence, and that you start to see the potential player. But I always, for pitchers, this is for hitters exclusively. I find, and I always have had problems with a hitter making a club out of spring training, because the spring training becomes the outlier, right? He has this monster 6 weeks in camp after a marginal, if not struggling, AA season or some AAA at bats, and you buy into that 6 weeks, and that 6 weeks is not, I don't think, ever a good preview for what you're going to, because there's going to be slumps, and like the Corbin Carroll, this kid is on the field now for the first time in a long time, or ever, with players as good or better than he is, and how they react and stuff. But the Yankees need a shortstop. And so, if you can handle it defensively, what's that?
And Curt, if they somehow go with Volpe at second and Peraza at short, you've got a 21-year-old and a 22-year-old up the middle of your defense. Yeah. That, I don't ever remember that happening.
No, that would be, I think one of them is going into the season with one of them at shortstop is kind of pushing expectations. I think, the Yankees are World Series or bust. Make no mistake about it. It's every year in the Bronx, and that's one of the beauties, I think, of being a Yankee or playing for the Yankees. But it's a different animal there, man. It is just a different animal. And you've seen players go there, just like in Boston or Philadelphia or any of the kind of harsher environments. He'll get cheered, and they'll do his name chant in right field for about a week. But when he's hitting 104 with 28 punch outs after a week, those will stop. And I guess the question you have to ask, and the question I think everybody asks themselves is, can we permanently damage this guy by taking him north with us and him struggling and us having to send him back to AAA? Do we lose him? Or is he the kind, and that gets back to, I think, Booney. One of the things that I know about Aaron Boone is he understands people. And I think one of the things you have to factor into that move is, can he do that? Can he have a struggle, get sent down, and come back and be It's good because some you've seen guys in the past, a bad call up, a bad month in the big leagues, and they're never seen or heard from again. And that's not what you want from a kid because this is a legit top end prospect. So be interesting to see, especially when you consider that the Yankees are going to be leaving spring training as injured as they are. And by the way, I don't think that they're the favorites in the AL East anymore. I don't think they can be with their physical issues. I'm very comfortable with Toronto being the big dog in that division. I think Tampa Bay will be Tampa Bay, whatever that means. So staying in the East, I'm not sure how I feel about this. Apparently Alex Cora has made it clear that Chris Sale will not be the opening day starter. My guess would be they'll go with probably somebody like Kluber. But I do like these quotes because these hit a little bit home for me. He was talking about at post game the other day. He was talking about this year and injuries and stuff, and he says, "quote I owe my teammates the starting pitcher they thought they were going to get. I owe the front office the starting pitcher they paid for. I owe the fans performance they're paying to come and see." Looking for a silver lining to his injury, while Sale noted, "That's 3 years of pitching that's not on my arm," as he enters his age 34 season. "That's not going on the odometer. I've kept myself in really good physical shape. My arm's feeling good. I don't have any hesitation going forward with pitching." All of that I rings true, and that speaks to, I think, the kind of the competitor he is. The problem is, and I don't think he's trying to do this, but you can't make up for those 3 years this year. You can't do it. Just stay healthy and pitch. But those are, I get where he's coming from, but it's also one of those, you don't want him going out there trying to strike out 4 guys an inning. Even though he is that guy. But that he's not going to pitch opening day is a little odd to me. Just because that's your stud, that's your ace. That if I say, "Bill, you're managing the Red Sox and you guys have now qualified for the 1-game play-in, who's your starting pitcher on that staff? All guys healthy."
Chris Sale.
Right. And that to me is your opening day guy. So I'm not sure what the reasoning behind Alex's reasoning behind that is, but I played with Alex. I know Alex, and I'm very comfortable with him as a manager. I think he's a guy that understands his people, and my guess would be that there's some front office influence there as well. So,
and I'll tell you, Curt, I will tell you, their rotation has the same problem that the Yankees rotation has, because after Kluber and Sale, Nick Pavetta's been banged up this spring. He's finally back and throwing live innings. But behind him is Garrett Whitlock and James Paxton, and neither of them has thrown anything other than BP at this point because that they're nicked. And
here's the problem with that, Bill. We're midway through March. We're 2 weeks from opening day. We're 2 weeks from opening day. If you haven't made a start in mid-March and you're throwing nothing but batting practice, you're not ready to take the ball in the opening series and go 6 or 7 innings. It's not even close. I mean, you're talking about these guys possibly getting into the season or being on the opening day roster with less than 15 innings in spring training. That's absurd to me. I mean, we know in the NFL, right? Guys take off all of the preseason and will play opening day and quarterbacks and they'll be fine. That doesn't work in baseball. I can't work in baseball, and it never will. So I'm not sure. Are they planning to? Because I mean, look at San Diego. They're talking about going to a 6-man rotation with their pitching, which is a great problem to have. But I think you're looking at an April full of bullpen arms in Boston, and that, like I said, every inning out of that you don't get from your starters, you put on the bullpen, and there's only so many innings your bullpen can throw for the year. And it gets back to what we were talking about last week or the last show, Bill. You got to leave spring training with 15 pitchers, and they're not all on your roster, but you have to have those guys in AAA. These guys, if I'm Boston, you're talking closer to 20 than 15, because if every game's a bullpen game, because Sale's not if Sale's not pitching opening day, I don't think it's realistic to expect his first start to be 115 pitches in 7 innings. Same thing with Kluber. So you're looking at tying a lot of innings on in spring training, and there's a lot of questions in Boston this year after the winter they had, and a lot of questions. Speaking of spring training, hey, listen, I've never had a problem admitting when I'm wrong. And all of these numbers, the rule changes. Holy cow. Game time in 2022 for spring training was 3 hours and 1 minute. It's 2 hours and 36 minutes now. Runs per game, 10.6 up to 11. Stolen bases per game, 1.6 up to 2.4. Stolen bases per game, 1.1 to 1.9.
That's the one we said that we'd look up, Curt,
yeah,
on the last pod, and there it is, almost a full stolen base successful a game.
And that's going to grow. I think that's going to grow as more guys get comfortable with the rule. Pitch clock violations there last year.
No, spring week 1.
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah. The first week of camp, there were 2 per game. Now there's 1.5. And apparently in AAA last year, that's what happened. They started out and they went down and they leveled off during the season. I still think you're going to have some irate people the first time a game is decided on that, because that will happen. That will absolutely happen. We do have active baseball, meaningful baseball, and Japan is looking good. They're 4-0 in group play. They're into the quarterfinals. I got to tell you, man, Yoshinobu Yakamoto and Roki Sasaka. That's the 21-year-old kid is Sasaka, right?
Yes.
He hit 121 times in his last outing. Yakamoto has 8 punch-outs in 4 innings. They have mid-season pitching for a March tournament, and that might end up being the thing that gives them puts them over the hump, because Ohtani's being Ohtani, 6 for 12, 7 walks, a bomb, and 7 RBIs. And he has 4 scoreless innings too. He's in mid-season form, and that, I think that gives them an enormous advantage. Plus, the Latin countries, for this fact, they play winter baseball down there, so they're not coming into spring training getting ready for the season in a lot of cases. These guys are coming in ready. And they're ahead of everybody. And I think you saw, Mexico beats the U.S. And I think for that reason, Mexico's the same way. I actually played some winter ball down in Mexico. The season runs closer to spring training, and they were more ready. And I think USA is gonna have issues. And I think it's going to be exactly what you said, Bill. I think it's going to be the pitching. I think that is the big equalizer in this tournament, as Japan is showing. And I think if you look around, you'll see that's everything else.
Well, and the interesting thing about the U.S. and DeRosa's dilemma is all of the rules that the major league clubs have put on him using his pitchers at this tournament.
Yep. And you heard me say it earlier. I wouldn't let my guys go. I wouldn't have pitchers go. I don't think there's any upside whatsoever. Adam Wainwright, different story, right? He's 40, 41. He's playing in his last season, but there's no chance I would let anybody that's on my 40-man or prospects. I would have contract language forbidding it, just because there is zero upside to send a pitcher to this thing, other than, there is none whatsoever. Although I think we're going to see, if you look at that, first of all, it's kind of fun. It's like fantasy baseball when you look at the USA lineup, and thinking about some of the young pitchers in the WBC having to face that lineup is kind of entertaining from a mental approach perspective. So I'm firmly on Team Japan now. I think it's going to be very hard to beat that pitching, because they can hit too, and they're hitting. So
absolutely, Curt. We skipped over it in the rundown, but you and I texted during the weekend, and you said that there's a few stories you want to get out on the podcast, and number one on the list was an A-Rod story about the All-Star game. I have to hear it.
One of the things you forget a lot, but there are stories that you don't ever forget, and this is actually a 2-story combined to one. But in 2002, when we were at the All-Star game in Milwaukee, you remember the infamous All-Star game that ended tied. I was mic'd by Fox, and I went to Alex the day before during batting practice, and I said, "Hey, listen, if you come up tomorrow with nobody on, I am going to throw you nothing but fastballs." And he kind of gave me a look like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah." I said, if there's nobody on when you come up, I'm going to throw you nothing but fastballs." And he's like, "Okay." So sure enough, he comes up in the bottom of the first, or I think top of the first. Anyway, 2 outs, nobody on. And I threw, I want to say it was 97 away, then 96 in for strike 2, and then I think 99 away for strike 3. And he just kind of looked at me like, I think he took the first pitch thinking, is it real? And then I think it was a little bit too late for him to catch up. But it was one of those things. I wanted to see what the best fastball hitter in the world could do against a fastball pitcher when he knew what was coming. And that was fun. But also real quick, during my career, I had a lot of give and take with Alex, and a lot more give than take. I said some things, and quite a few things when I was initially a player, and then when I went into the booth. And towards the end of his career, there was an extensive article about Alex and his family. When he came to grips, when he admitted about PEDs and all the things that went with that. And it was at a time in my life when I was going through some really troubling things on a business side. And the article, when I read it, it hit home for me. I felt like, okay, yeah, you've created all your own problems, but you're still a father and a man. And I really went to the side of hoping that he finished his career feeling good about himself and all the things that go with that. Anyway, fast forward to spring training. We're doing the Yankee preseason report, and we go to Tampa. And I made a point to show up at the players' parking lot at like 7 a.m. And he came in, and I caught him walking in, and I said, and he kind of looked at me, and I said, "Hey, you got a minute?" And he's like, "Yeah." I said, "Listen, I just wanted to let you know that all of for the things that I said when you were playing." And he interrupted me. He goes, "Which part?" I was like, "Oh, okay, well played." I said, "I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. I apologize. It was uncalled for. It probably didn't make your life any easier, but I wanted you to know going into this last season that I'm pulling for you. I want you to finish with your head up and walk away from the game on your own terms." And I think he appreciated it. I don't know, but it was. And again, like I said, I don't want to be wrong, but I don't have a problem admitting when I am. And I felt like when I look back on it, it wasn't fair that I did and said some of the things that I did and said. And so we parted ways, and I think we did so amicably. I still think with the right people, he's one of the best booth guys he's a savant when it comes to baseball. Talking to him about baseball is so enjoyable in the few times that I've done it. But so that's my A-Rod story.
Beautiful. Really good stuff.
Interesting.
All right, time now to answer some questions from our fans. We're going to start with Chris Minetti, who asks, how is it possible to have the best player in baseball in Mike Trout and Ohtani, and they can't make the playoffs?
Well, I think in the short answer is it shows you the depth and breadth of talent needed to win in this sport. It's a 162 game season. It's the most grinding, grueling schedule in professional sports. And you have to have, well, the other short answer is they haven't had the pitching. And the Houston Astros are really good and this and that. There's always reasons. I think it's a crime. I think it's a shame, because I think those two players need to be broadcast loud and wide, worldwide, because they're special. I still believe Mike Trout's the best hitter anybody alive will ever see. Hopefully he can spend the next couple of years healthy and do the things that he's capable of doing. But the bottom line is it gets back to they haven't had the pitching, period. And I don't know that they've addressed that or made that any better. I think that Seattle has gotten stronger in that division. Houston is Houston. And I think Texas is going to present an issue as well. But they haven't had the pitching. And I think, unfortunately, I think that they're due for another fourth place finish. Or maybe Yeah, probably fourth place, I'm guessing, because I think Oakland is all in on the quote unquote rebuild. So
Beautiful. All right. Dave Mason asks, if you were MLB commissioner, what would you change?
I would change the financial ecosystem. I would make Major League Baseball be the 30 some teams be 100% revenue share. All the money goes into a pot and all the teams split it. And I think if you could do that and you did that, I think you would have probably a little bit more parity, even though I think baseball has an enormous amount of parity already. That would be the one thing. I think if you asked me that question a month ago, I would have said I would have reverted all the new rule changes, but apparently I'm wrong on that one, because those are all seemingly having positive impacts for most fans. I don't know that, and I'll ask you this, Bill. Is there any circumstance under which you see a fan saying, I didn't like baseball last year, but I'm going to watch it this year? Because I don't see it.
No, I don't see it, but I do think you're going to get good PR in the sports world if these changes actually have, if runs are up, if stolen bases are up, if game times are down to 2.5. That is all
Agreed.
a good message to give to fans, and you might solidify more of your fan base once they buy into the change.
Yeah. I mean, to be clear, the TV money is borderline insane, and it always will be, because from an entertainment perspective, live sporting events are the last bastion of advertising. If you control live sporting events, you control the only entertainment people can't pick when and where they want to be entertained with. And I think that is a powerful and very lucrative thing. And I think that doing that, although I got to tell you, I believe you're going to see a concessions hit, because think about it. I mean, how many millions of fans go to a game a year? You take 30 minutes a game times the thousands of games, and you eliminate that in concession sales. There's going to be a significant change. Although I guess you're hoping to counteract that with advertising, right? I mean, you're hoping that advertising starts to come back in a big, meaningful way. But it's going to be interesting. I've always liked the 2-to-1, 2 hour and 15-minute games. I don't mind the 11-10 games when they occur every now and then. The problem is I played in Boston, and I don't remember a Boston, New York Yankee game that was under 4 hours, even if it was 9 innings, and even if it was 2-to-1. And that's where I think the clock will help.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
There you go. All right. Good episode. We're back next.
We're back Friday.
We're back
Friday.
We're back Friday you can follow us at OutKick.com. You go to shows, and usually there's a link right at the top of the page for the Curt Schilling Baseball Show. OutKick.com. Bill, you have a wonderful week. We're going to pay attention to the WBC. Will be heading towards its climax as we get to the end of the week. And will Team USA qualify? Because I'm wondering if that's not going to be a catastrophic turn of events if they don't do that.
That will be a story if they don't qualify.
Yeah. All right, buddy.
Have a good one.
You too, man. Take care.